Welcome to case 2, for which values of x is f of x times g of x less than 0, for which values of f of x times g of x is greater than 0. Welcome to another video. I am Gaston Mapala. Today we are looking at case 2. If you have not watched case 1 of these questions for which values of x, please go and look at the first video so that you don't get confused when we do this one here. All right, each cases are different. There are 3 cases. This is only case 2. Make sure you watch case 1 and also you watch this video until the end so that you can have a clue how case 3 looks like. In each questions we look at different things and then classifying the values of x that are required thereof. All right, okay, in this question we are given here f of x is a parabola. Let me just mark it here. F of x is this one. Therefore, g of x is a straight line. All right, we've already gone through the questions. Now, in this case, in case number 2, please note that you only look at the x-intercept. Okay, you only look at the x-intercept. Okay, you look at the x-intercept only. All right, so now previously when you were given let me just remind you from the previous question, when you were given a situation like this, only where f of x is greater or equal to g of x or less or equal to thereof, what you were looking at here, you were looking at, on these ones, you were looking at the intercepts between the two graphs. Right, so now in this case you're not looking at the intercept. You are given 2 graphs multiplying each other. You are therefore looking at the x-intercept. If there are 3 x-intercept on the graph, you must highlight all of them. In this case we can only see 2, but if this straight line was sitting somewhere here, let me give you an example. If the straight line was sitting somewhere here, we are going to have this x-intercept and this one here, and this we're going to have 3 intercepts. But in this case it's only 2, so which means the question is even more favorable. So I'm going to remove this, as I was just showing you with this one, guys. All right, great stuff. So let's mark them. We do vertical lines on the x of intercept because this is what we're gonna consider. We are only considering the x-intercept in this case, guys. Very, very important, very, very critical to know what you are looking at and how. Okay, so if we divide this into vertical lines, what do we have? We have got stage 1 here, we have got stage 2, and we have got stage 3. All right, we can have 4 stages. If there was another x-intercept here, we would have 4 stages. All right, so therefore now let's look at question number 1. Let's look at question number 1, or question A rather. It is saying f of x times g of x should be less or equal to 0. Okay, so what are you looking at here? You are looking at for the values of y, when you multiply them with the values of g, they must give you less than 0. Okay, I know that sounds confusing a little bit, but what I mean is that if you've got a negative number here and here you multiply with a positive number, what are you gonna get? Less than 0. If you have got a positive answer here, then you multiply that with a negative answer there, what are you gonna have? Less than 0. So basically that's what we're looking for. So on the graph, how do we classify this positive and negative? This is a situation where one graph, guys, please, I'm gonna write this down in words because I know that some of us will be difficult to ascertain, is which one graph. Okay, one graph. I want to make sure, guys, that you get 90% on this one. One graph of, it could be either of f or g of x is above, look at the English there, is above or below x-axis. All right, I think it's clear, né? Very clear. Okay, let's look at it. Above the x-axis, we classify these values as positive values. Why are we saying these are positive values above the x-axis? Because they are positive values because y here is positive above the x-axis. So these are positive values here. And then below that, these are negative values here. So you in both for this to be able to satisfy the equation, one graph must be positive, one graph must be negative. So let's look at stage 1 to classify this. Stage 1, the stage 1 hold, okay, f of x is above the x-axis and then g of x is below, so therefore this does hold. And you know what it means? If stage 1 holds, stage 2 is most likely not to hold. Let's look at stage 2. Both graphs are below the x-axis, so therefore this one won't hold. And then when you look at the third stage, both graphs are above the x-axis, so therefore in this instance this one will not hold as well. Why doesn't it hold? Because both graphs are positive, as we are looking for something that is less than 0. All right, so let's go ahead and classify these values here. All right, okay, yes, let's go ahead and classify these two values here. We are going to say in this case here, what do we have? Our answer is going to be from x is the element of all real numbers from negative infinity up until -6. What do we put in this case? We put an open bracket like that. Here we put a square bracket because of greater or equal to. All right, great stuff. So now after we have done this, we can come here and say, okay, if you want to express this in inequality sign, you are going to say x has to be less or equal to -6. Therefore this equation will be satisfied. All right, okay, I hope you guys understood that. Let me just recap for you on this one. Make sure that you watch this video until the end so that you fully understand and you will never have problem with the questions like this one. All right, so let's have a look at this one. We are saying that we want a situation where one graph is positive, which means that it's above the x-axis, and the other graph is negative, is below the x-axis. And stage 1, that is where this is satisfied. On stage 2, it's not satisfied because both of them, they are below the x-axis. And then in stage 3, not satisfied either because both of them, they are above the x-axis. All right, so let's move on to B. Okay, they said I must use a different color for different questions. Let's move on. I'm gonna use blue in this case. Okay, let's first remove the things from equation 1, from question 1 there. Okay, great stuff. I think we are ready to go now. And then B, it's saying that for which values of x is f of x, when you multiply by g of x, has to be greater than 0. So what are you looking for? Here you are looking for a situation where this graph is negative, and then when you multiply by a negative, you get a positive answer. Therefore, this is what you're looking for. Or you are looking for where both graphs are positive. Where is this one? So you are looking for situations where both graphs are below the x-axis, which both of them will be negative, and you are looking for a situation where both of them, they are positive and they will be above the x-axis. All right, I'm not gonna write it in words anymore, guys, but you can pause this video, write it in the words so that you don't forget, or you can rewind this video and make sure that you fully understand what I'm saying. Okay, I'm going to say it again. Negative, it means it's a situation where both graphs are below the x-axis. Positive is a situation where both graphs are above the x-axis, so that they give us a positive y value. So let's have a look at those situations here in the two graphs. Stage number 1, you can see that f of x is above the x-axis, while g of x is below, so therefore this will not satisfy the equation. And right here on stage 2, both graphs starting from -6 going all the way to 2, they are below, which means they give us negative and negative. So therefore stage 2, this is satisfied, and therefore stage 3, they are both above the x-axis, therefore stage 3 will also be satisfied. All right, okay, so now let's come here and say x is the element to describe this situations here. X is the element of from negative 6 up until 2. This equation will be satisfied. And then also, or from when? From positive 2 to positive infinity. Then we close here because infinity never comes to an end. So with this, how do you classify this in terms of inequality? You're gonna come here and say, okay, now X should be less or equal to 2, and therefore less or equal to 6. Okay, greater or equal to 6 rather. And then in this instance here, you will just come here and say X has to be greater or equal to 2. And that's how you would deal with a question like this one that is requiring you to have positive or negative. All right, I hope you guys understood it. Now let's go to C. If you didn't understand it, guys, please make sure that you leave a comment on the comment section below. I will do my best to make another video to explain it, or I can just explain it to you one-on-one, and then or make another video for you. Or if you leave, the more questions you leave, the more I would know how to explain it differently. All right, okay, let's have a look at f of x is multiplied by g of x is greater than 0. Please remember, guys, on the previous video I told you that take note that when you're using a square bracket, you are referring to greater or equal to. Okay, and then when you are using a normal bracket, we are referring to just greater without an equal to sign. All right, please take note of this. But guys, whether you express it in sigma notation or in inequality notation, though both answers are correct, and then they will just mark you for 1. All right, so here I'm just trying to show you both ways, because I know some people understand sigma notation, some may understand better in equality notation. All right, so now let's come here. F of x times g of x should be greater than 0. Let's come here and have a look at those two situations where both graphs are below the x-axis and both graphs are above the x-axis. Right, we're looking for a positive answer in this case. All right, okay, I think the answer should be more or less the same as this one. The difference will just be the inequality sign. All right, x is the element of all real numbers, so therefore here in this case, let's come here and see. Obviously here f of x is above the x-axis, and therefore this one won't be satisfied. Both of them, they are below. Stage 2 will be satisfied. Both of them, they are above the x-axis, therefore stage 3 will be satisfied. All right, so let's come here and say, okay, x is the element. We are starting from negative 2 up until 2, and then therefore what else is there? You've got or where x is the element from positive 2 up until positive infinity, close bracket, and then to express this in terms of inequality is going to be x is less than 2, and therefore x is greater or equal to negative 6. Then therefore also the last one here would be x is greater than 2. Please take note, guys, here we are not using square bracket because it's only greater. All right, okay, so similarly same thing would apply. Let's come to D now. Let's come to D. D, I would use let me use a yellow color rather. Okay, D, I hope you guys are really following. If you're not following, please leave a comment on the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think of a question like this one. And therefore we're still gonna do case 3. Please make sure that you stay tuned on this channel, then we can do case 3 together. All right, okay, let's have a look at this one. They are saying f of x when you multiply it to g of x, you must get an answer that is less than 0. Okay. All right, where are we? We're here. F of x times g of x is less than 0. So let's have a look at this one. It's where one graph is above the x-axis, one is below. So let's have a look at this one. Stage 1 here. Stage 1, f of x is above, g of x is below, so therefore stage 1 will be satisfied. Stage 2, both of them, they are below the x-axis, therefore this is not satisfied. And then therefore stage 3, both of them, they are above the x-axis, therefore this is also not satisfied. Okay, so now let's express this in terms of sigma notation. You're going to say x is the element where from negative infinity up until -6, therefore we close this one, therefore there is no any other one after that. So therefore here in terms of sigma notation, in terms of inequality notation, we'll just say x is less than -6 rather, any values that are below -6, therefore this is satisfied. Okay, now let's have a look at this one, guys. I hope you really understand this one. This is just case number 2 of the 3 cases that we're doing. If you've not watched case number 1, please go and watch the previous video from this one. Now I'm going to show you a glimpse of question of case number 3. This is what we'll be doing on case number 3, which is a little bit different from that one. So please make sure, guys, that you stay tuned and you watch the whole series of these questions, because now we will be doing case 3 and it's a little bit different and a little bit tricky. Please so make sure that you watch this video. I am Gaston Mapala. See you on the next upload.